Homeless people are not a monolith. There are a million different types of homeless people. There's a million different types of ways that systems can hurt them and can help them. Because homelessness is a prevalent problem. I mean, and it's going to be. People are not numbers, they're freaking people. My name is Greg. I am almost 50. I'm in Brooklyn, New York. I was homeless for 9 years with my dog, Coffee. My dog, Coffee, is a 10-year-old boxer pit mix. She's a rambunctious 10-year-old. Like, for being a 10-year-old dog, she still thinks she's 4. Coffee's really, really playful. We've had a lot of misadventures. Found Coffee abandoned in a field in Chicago, Illinois, when she was just probably about 8 months old. I went around the corner and there's this starving head of a dog with a little scrawny body and tied up, totally not able to move. I went up to go untie her and she bit me. I was able to untie her, and so I rescued her from starving to death. One thing about having a dog is I'm not the best person at taking care of myself, but I am pretty good at taking care of my dog. And through like being able to take care of my dog, I actually started to take better care of myself, which was something that I just didn't have the facility to do all the time. So the dog is like kind of like an important part of that. Taking care of Coffee has helped me like cut down drinking, and completely quit drugs. Which isn't something that I ever thought that would happen. It's been extremely helpful to me. You have to confront a lot of your problems when you sober up, and that's something that is really hard to do. There's a reason why you're like not trying to think about things. I used to just seek kind of trouble and danger, and now it's like, oh no, if I go do horrible things to myself, I have to drag my dog along with me. And I just think that like really is like something that I didn't want to put her through. And so, I mean, it's been a struggle, but it's also been really rewarding at the same time. She's been there for me through a lot of hardships. Before my dog came around, I don't remember much of it. I was in a constant cycle of like drinking heavily, drugging, depression, a lot of depression over like stuff that had been going on. Everybody has different cracks that they fall through. Like nobody has like the same exact like experience. I've been diagnosed my whole life with major depression disorder. I started being homeless when I was very young. I was like kicked out of my house by my stepfather. So I just kind of grew up with this like culture of young homeless people. You get out of it for a minute, but then you get right back in because it's just like, you really do like start missing that kind of bond of the streets and the bond of like friendships that you make on the streets. Then it gets exciting and you're like, oh, I can just go to a different city and be homeless in a different city. So I ended up in that cycle and I ended up in New York City. I've been doing this since the 90s. Really, I think that like what it is it's just a bunch of poor kids who like don't have much to lose and don't really have that much to gain and just live for the instant and the second. And I think like getting into that mindset is really easy, especially when you already are homeless. When you don't think about the future, it's hard to start thinking about the future. I really kind of just stumbled into like having a place to live. Not really. I wasn't really pursuing it. I was talking to my friend who was getting housing, and he kind of got me into Breaking Ground. One of the reasons why I was able to work through them was because Breaking Ground provided pet-friendly shelters, which would be a huge barrier. I wouldn't have been able to move into a shelter if it wasn't pet-friendly. If they just were no animals, I would still be on the street. And that's one of the things that is something that people like have a problem with everywhere I've ever been. It took a while after I started working with Breaking Ground to get into housing. It took me about a year to get into the shelter. I think that Breaking Ground did a really good job of like being able to work with somebody who probably was like somewhat difficult client. I think I even declined like to go into a shelter like once or twice, but they still stuck with me through it. They have a good thing about coming out to people and talking to them and figuring out what people need. They're pretty good at pursuing you and getting you like going like, no, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this. The fact that I had a dog never came up with the street team. The only thing that they were asking me about with having a dog is whether I needed to get vet care because they run free vet services and stuff. So what they did was they set up a date to meet me to get a lot of things done. The psychiatrist and the vet came out at the same time to give Coffee her shots, write me a prescription for medication and also for the dog. Now you need a prescription from the doctor that says you would do better with an emotional support animal than you would without one. It's hard enough being homeless than to deal with going halfway across town for something a lot of the time. They have a street veterinary team. They have a street everything team. I don't know, this organization is really good at that. After I got my shots and my ESA for Coffee, I was in the shelter even less than a week. Coffee, she made a really, really good friend there, which was great for me because I had a neighbor who liked to take my dog out, which was really nice. One of the things about working with the street team is that it helped me kind of choose what shelter I wanted to live in. I'd lived in a shelter with a dormitory before and I just can't handle that. Because I just can't live with a bunch of people in a room, which I have done before and I just don't like. It just reminds me of jail. I had my own room. I had no curfew. It wasn't even that I wanted to stay out late or that I would stay out late. The thing about not having a curfew is that I just don't want that pressure of having to show up at the shelter. One of the shelters I was at before had a really strict curfew, and I was a minute late, and I got written up, and I had to do extra work around the shelter for 3 days for being a minute late. And I was just like, this is strict. I understand that they're like militarily trying to get you to get your life in order, but it's like, you're also talking to a person who's homeless, who's fine with being homeless, and isn't really fine with like having a lot of these kind of pressures put on them. Like you're not working with me. You're kind of like setting this barrier between me and like my own success. Like that's what I feel like a lot of the rules in shelters end up doing, is because it becomes like this extra pressure point. I moved into this building last year, right before Thanksgiving. I live right by the Manhattan Bridge. I live in beautiful downtown Brooklyn, the heart of America. I like the area a lot. I really like the convenience of having a lot of parks. I like living by the water. I like being close to all the metro systems. I think it's funny because this is like one of the most touristy places I've ever lived. A lot of people come here to take pictures of the Brooklyn Bridge. All these people from like different parts of the world all the time. Like I'm always talking to people who are like French or it seems like all during the summer and telling them how to get to the bridge. Coffee, she loves it. There's lots of great parks and there's also the water. During the summer, I take her more to the water. And she loves one of her neighbors here. There's a guy down the hallway who's always like bringing her chicken. There's like a good housing system here, and you just have to go through some stuff and you'll have your own place at the end. I think street teams are important. I think outreach is important. I also think centralized services are important. You have to have a plethora. Homeless people are not a monolith. There are a million different types of homeless people. There's a million different types of ways that systems can hurt them and can help them. And there's some homeless people who aren't like willing or ready to get help at all points. That doesn't make them less human. It means that you have to provide the services that they're ready to receive. You have to meet people where they're at. Because homelessness is a prevalent problem. I mean, and it's going to be. There's not an end-all solution to homelessness. It's really hard to concentrate on like, where are you helping people? Where are you not hurting people? And I think when you break it down to statistics, it's really impossible to know. People are not numbers, they're freaking people. It's like nice to have like other friends that did this. I have like somebody downstairs that I know from being homeless. I have somebody who lives in another house in Brooklyn that I know from being homeless. And I have somebody who lives right across the bridge here who I know from being homeless. And then a couple friends that I've made along the way to getting in this house too. And New York's a nice city to not be homeless in. If I can make it in New York, I can make it anywhere, right?